Hello, this is predominantly for CC members, Connecting Conscious members across the globe. Um, we've really had to concentrate quite heavily on the US and the COVID. And of course, that's taken a lot of our time, and it's actually made people quite stressed because we all obviously got involved in it to a greater or lesser extent. And we see, it seems to be that the evil is triumphing over good. And, it has left a lot of spiritual people quite exhausted physically, energy wise, and perhaps spiritually in a way as well. So remember that Connecting Consciousness is a spiritual organization. And sometimes we have to get involved in the physical aspect because that has or can have a huge effect, not just in one country, but right across the globe, and is pivotal to some of the principles that we believe in. In other words, good fighting evil and overcoming evil. And so that's one of the things that, of course, is very, very connected to the physical world. And, we just have to think about mainstream media. We have to think about how our friends view us, how family members, might be your children, it might be mother or father or wife or husband, it doesn't matter. It's people that are close to you, people who know your viewpoint, and totally reject what we stand for. And yet we know in our hearts that we are right. It doesn't mean that these people are bad, far from it. It just means that they are not seeing the full picture. They're not seeing the truth. And so it can leave many people even more isolated, more worried and concerned. And some people might say, well, what is the point in this? Will humanity ever wake up? People are really, really down because they thought this was the great moment that we would break free, and it jolly nearly was. And I hope you catch my podcast I did earlier today on BitChute, explaining what went wrong and what the good guys are, progressing towards the second position. So we're not down, but we're terribly frustrated, and we've put a lot into this. You've put a lot into this. And so I really do get it, that there'll be people right across the planet who are thinking, we've had the virus situation, we've had the government's response to it, the way they've locked things down. We've had all of these issues right down to floods, water pouring in, and roads cut off, and supermarkets run out of food, and all of these small things which on their own wouldn't have been the end of your day, but when you add all of these things together, then it becomes quite a physical barrier. And so what I want to do is to say to you, remember that CC is a spiritual group, and that's the core, the thread that holds us all together. And that in the darkest times, in the most difficult times, that is when we are all being tested. I'm being tested as the head of the organization. You're being tested as people who believe and hold together. And what can be worse than people you live with disagreeing with you? And that wouldn't be so difficult if we knew that we were wrong, but we know we're right because we are prepared to see and understand the full evidence. Where a lot of these people will just literally spend three seconds or 3 minutes, and they'd accept what they've been given, even when what they've been given is wrong. And so, how do you tackle that? How do you say to a loved one, you are fundamentally wrong? And what should you do to yourself? And I think the important point is that even though we might be related to somebody, we might be married to them, or we live with them, whatever that relationship is, brother, sister, doesn't matter what it is, we're not actually responsible for that person's choices. Now, I know if they're under 18 or under 21, depending on your country, you have a legal responsibility. I'm talking about spiritual responsibility, not what the law says or requires of you, but of the spiritual responsibility. You cannot be responsible for somebody, and your natural reaction as a good person is to try and help them, to try and show them the truth, try to bring them to the light. And of course they don't want that, and they fight against it, and they hold you responsible. And it becomes really, really difficult, because you're thinking, well, they are rejecting everything I stand for, or they reject, the truth, and yet I love them, and I can't bear to see them being sucked into this corridor like this. All you can do, you can't ram anything down their throats, because that won't work. All you can do is show them what you believe in, and show them that it makes you stronger. And they will make the choice whether at some point in the future they will come to that, or whether they won't. But you mustn't allow it to affect you, because it's not your fault. It's not your responsibility. You have a belief system based on truth. They have a belief system based on lies. Because the lies they've been given, they are not able to discern through that. So that's the way it is. And there are more people on this planet in the last few years breaking up or not talking to each other and becoming estranged, because it's part of this ascension process. Those that see will advance. Those that don't see won't advance. And so don't look on this as the end of the world. Look on it as the choice. It doesn't matter whether it's tea or coffee today, or what do I take as the reality of the matrix that I'm living in. These are all choices, and some choices have minimal effect, and some choices are absolutely dramatic. So you must look after yourselves. You must prioritize yourselves. You must ensure that your spiritual side is fed, and you must ensure that the physical side is fed as well, to different materials. But you must actually have confidence in yourself, and it's not you that's at fault. Sadly, it is the majority of people around you. I say they're at fault, it sounds very judgmental, but they are not seeing what you see. And this is part of this choice. This is the way it is. I've always been consistent that we will never, in my opinion, take large numbers of people through to the new awakening. That just won't happen. It will be a very small number. And everybody wants their own family member to be one of those people that comes with them. And I must ask you to think about letting go of the third dimension. Letting go of this, I am responsible for, or, it's up to me to do this. I feel that I've made people angry, or I feel that, I need to do this or do that. And no, actually, you don't. Because other people will develop a response to what's happened. And you could take two separate people and put the same situation in front of them, and you might get two completely different responses. That is the difficulty and the beauty of the human race. That's what partly makes us so special. We're incredibly creative. But not only can we create beautiful things, and we can create drama, we can create problems and issues. And so try to please, under this time of great stress and great trial, understand that it's not just you individually, it is the whole human consciousness that is under great stress and trial. I have never seen so many people drive badly in these last few days, few weeks. I have never seen so many people distracted, so many accidents occurred, so many people, their mind elsewhere. This is part of this huge drawing of energy where people must decide where they are in this matrix reality, not just physically, I'm talking about spiritually. Where do we stand? And it doesn't matter if 10 people around you are wrong. You mustn't change just for a quiet life. You mustn't come down to their level. If 10 people around you are wrong, then that's because they're wrong. And if you're right, then you're right. And you know the truth. That's why you're awake. Nobody said it was going to be easy. And that's one of the reasons I created Connecting Consciousness. It's up to you to say to your coordinator, I would like more Skype meetings or more Zoom meetings. I'm really sorry with this lockdown. Before this wretched lockdown, those within a reasonable travel distance could meet together. It was regular occurrence right across our planet where there were connecting consciousness members who would meet, maybe only 3, 4 or 5 people at a time, sometimes as many as 20 at a time. But people had the ability to meet physically, to have that connection, to share, and to remind themselves that we're not all completely crazy. We're actually the front of the spear point. We're actually the energy that will force and break through. But when we can't physically connect, and we're physically being shut up and tied down, as it were, we are reliant more on media, and we can't rely on the mainstream media, so we have to rely on the social media, and that's great, but it's not the same as meeting someone for a coffee or a drink or just a walk. It's not the same. And of course, these people who we call unawake and unaware, they are being forced more into their box, because like us, they are not allowed to go out properly. They're having to wear a mask when they go into stores. They have lost the ability to socialize. How many people have you seen on the street or the sidewalk or the pavement and their eyes are cast down to the pavement? How many people have you come fairly close to on a walkway and they almost jump out of your way? Yes, you could say, well, that's practicing social distancing, but it's almost like someone's poked them with a sharp stick. It's an overreaction. It's a fear-based, that's the word I wanted. It's a fear-based reaction, and it is bubbling up. I mean, the police are having to deal in Great Britain with more and more social unrest in houses, domestic issues, where people are at each other's throats, literally. The difficulties right across the globe, I think, are growing. And that's because the human condition was never designed to be put in a cage. We were never designed to be locked up. We're a very free type of people. We like to go out and enjoy ourselves, either individually or as a group, and then go back. And that's not happening. So we are having to defend our philosophy, our way of life, our understanding of the truth. We shouldn't have to do that. So what you perhaps can do is understand that the people who are around you are not at your level, and they're not ready at that level. So actually, it isn't worth your while at this stage. It's so difficult getting into a discussion with them. It might seem a bit of a cop-out, but talk about the weather. Talk about animals. Talk about anything you want. Talk about topics that unawake and unaware people can actually feel confident in talking to you about. Something that they don't have any fear about, something that they're confident and they feel good about. It's absolutely going to bore you to death. But if it's important for you to not lose connection with some of these people, then you have to bite the bullet. That's your personal sacrifice. If, on the other hand, you really are not bothered, except those about close members of your family, then you've just got to be quite strong about this and say, I'm not going to drop my true beliefs. I'm not going to throw away everything that I've learned. Some people have been awake for years and years and years, and why would they, having escaped out of the box, why would they want to go back in the box? If you've been in a dark room and you've got a torch, a flashlight, and you can now see, why would you turn it off? You wouldn't do it. And don't do it because other people around you want to do it. Remember this, that your views, your ideas, your beliefs in yourself, and generally it's because we are very positive. We don't think the worst of people. We think the worst of some mainstream media, but we don't actually live in fear. We shouldn't, and we don't always think the worst. And that's a real challenge for unawake and unaware people that have a very narrow narrative. So you, when you're around these people, you act as a trigger to them, because you're not living in the same fear-based matrix, this paradigm that has been created by the newspapers and the television and the radio. doctors in white coats. Your paradigm is not with that. And so therefore you are an anomaly. Remember in the Matrix film, Neo was the anomaly. They represent the anomaly, something they can't quantify. Your friends or these family members can't actually understand you. They can't quantify it. And that's because they've not reached your level of development of spiritual understanding. And so it's not your job to come down to them to make them feel better. It's their job to advance spiritually and come up and join you. And please, I want you all to hold that really, really strongly to you. You have fought hard to break free to the positions you're at. Do not, under any circumstances, relinquish that to fall back into this abyss of false-fed lies. It is difficult, and that's the point, isn't it? That when you're a good person, when you're seeking the truth, you will be attacked for it. Because bad people don't get attacked. Bad people are part of the system. At the moment on this planet, it's a third and fourth dimensional energy. And we're desperately trying to get out of this and get into a fifth dimensional reality where the energies that we are facing now just do not exist. And you know yourselves from either your own experiences or dreams, or you just know what you know what you know. And you know what's there, and you know how it can be for humanity. And it's so frustrating as the leader of Connecting Consciousness, the founder of that group, to looking down and thinking, we're nearly breaking free. And it's always the third dimension or the fourth dimension, the physical side, that constrains us. It is the physical imprisonment that is holding us back. It's not our beliefs. It's not our aspirations. It's not our values. What's being held back is the physical things, because that's the only way this negativity can affect you. It affects the people around you, affects the job you do. It affects whether you do well at this or do well at that. It's always a physical constraint. But your soul and your heart are sacred, and you've got to hold the flame of truth alight at all times. So connect more with CC members, talk more, be more open, don't hide this, actually express yourselves, really form those support groups. It isn't just about a meditation group or this group or that group. Actually just find time just to talk and to support each other. Remember that we should never judge each other. And we should actually, if you're one of these lucky people, you live with everyone around you who actually believes the same as you do. Well, instead of sitting there and thinking, aren't I lucky? Why don't we go out then and help those people who are struggling and trying to fight against this evil lie? So if you've got a bit more energy and a bit more time than some people, have a consider that you might be able to, run a workshop online. And those people who are really struggling, maybe they could share what that struggle is and how it affects them. And I will be writing to my coordinators and saying that, if there are groups that form on Skype or Zoom or what have you, if wanted, then I'd be happy to drop in on those, regardless of where they are, whichever country, whatever the time zone, providing it's reasonable for me. And I will be part of that. I may not have a great deal to say, but I'll certainly have a great deal to listen to. And I've always, been part of the grassroots. I've never turned my back on any of the groups. And so it's really important that I think that we understand that we're all under this pressure at the moment. And, you're doing nothing wrong. It is unfortunately the state of human consciousness where we'll just call them the bad guys, shall we, are hanging on like mad to the coattails of humanity and desperately trying to prevent humanity evolving, because when we do evolve, and we shall, all of those hangers on gripping like crazy will all fall away. I don't know if we'll go shooting up because the weight has been taken off us, but I know what will happen. There will be a massive change in our perception and the perception around us. And I think the saddest point perhaps will be looking back and seeing how few of us actually made it through. But the point is, it is sad from a third dimensional point of view, but from a spiritual point of view, what will be will be. Those that will come with us will, and those that won't. And it is from a third dimensional point very sad. And I'm not going to say to you, oh, get tough, toughen up, don't bother about it, because we are existing in third dimensional bodies, and therefore we are 50% in the energy world and 50% in the physical world. And it would be wrong to write off one side of us and just concentrating on the other, because we made a covenant when we came here for our energy inner body, our soul, our frequency, to exist within a biological body, an entity, an organism. So we already said that we will live in these two worlds, a physical and a non-physical. And that's what the play out is now. And are people en masse able to overcome the physical conditioning that they themselves have created for themselves, that their parents may have created for them, that their school may have done, that the media may have done? Are they strong enough? And when you look at the enormous weight working against us, it is an absolute miracle that people break free, because we're hugely outnumbered, if you like, but we will break free. And those that break free must celebrate that. And please do your best for others, but don't do it to the point that it begins to make you ill, or you become defeatist, or suicidal, or any of those things. Just remember that even those people that are the most ardent against you now may, in the coming weeks or months, do a complete turnabout and actually say to you, I've realized it. And I want to give you some examples. I have a very good friend, obviously no names here, a very good friend who was the epitome of the 3D world, but we shared a common interest. And although that common interest wasn't spiritual, it was a 3D practical interest around an organization. And I was the head of this organization, like a stamp club. It actually was a cat club. I'll tell you that. I was the president of a cat club. And all of the people around that table, nearly all of them anyway, were really, really lovely, really good. And most of them weren't what I would call spiritual, but they were there because they value life. They value the life of an animal. And so they've got to be good people to a certain extent, haven't they? You've got to be if you value life. And this particular person was very, very 3D. And then what happened is this person had a tragedy in their life, and they decided that they would take court action against this other organization which had so impacted their life. And they had about 3 or 4 court cases. And in this instance, the person was doing quite well. They were doing quite well. They'd won court cases. They'd beaten off the challenge, and the challenge, was quite strong because it was from a company. And then at the last court case, this person told me, my friend told me, that the court was completely empty. There was the magistrate or the judge, and the two sides were there. And then suddenly, my friend told me that a gentleman, a guy in a suit, nicely smartly dressed, came in, sat down, and just stared the whole time at the judge. And lo and behold, the judge completely changed around and found against my friend. And my friend did a lot of research and found that this person who'd come in belonged to a secret society. And that changed that person. That person then realized that courts weren't there for the purpose that they thought. The system wasn't there to protect them. Everything, the whole world changed. And so in a very short period of time, this person saw everything from upside down. And I'm amazingly impressed with this person because they bounced back really quickly, and they worked out that everything was designed to hoodwink or close a person down. Now, there are countless stories like this all over the planet. People waking up for what might appear to be unrelated reasons, but they actually are related. And if a person is meant to wake up, when faced with a choice, they will wake up. And so, you're on the right path. Just don't be put off by people, because actually it's not about having the last laugh, because that really is terribly third dimensional, but it is about saying that I should be proud that I held true to what I know is the truth. And in your hearts that you're right. And you mustn't buy in to all of the nonsense that's taking around you. And ultimately, a proportion of humanity will go on to the fifth dimension. So that's what I wanted to say to you. My message is predominantly to CC members, whether you are a coordinator, whether you've been with me for years, or whether you just joined yesterday. But this message works for everybody, but I am particularly making this for the CC membership. And as I say, if you can form extra groups, extra times, and you would like your coordinator, you can get hold of us, and I'd be more than happy just to pop on and listen to what you have to say and maybe talk to you. All right, thanks ever so much. Speak to you soon.